Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther with you on 6/6/26, June 6th, 26. Again, it's Saturday. I can't believe it. 8 p.m. Eastern. And the title of today's show is called Zero In on 118 Sky Tumbling. And there are a few reasons why I'm going there on this topic tonight. And I'm going to start off leading off with the main reason is to, if you look at my post section, I linked in my show number 118. It was from 5 years ago. And actually, I posted it on September 22nd. And that's a very important date if you know the Lord of the Rings books. That's Bilbo and Frodo Baggins's. Both of them had a birthday on September 22nd. So it's just in that show, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Ents and a little bit about towers. So we're going to go a little bit off into the fantasy world, maybe not so much fantasy. Maybe there's some clues in there of the Lord of the Rings, especially from the Two Towers book. It's the second book of three. Really, J.R.R. Tolkien intended the whole Lord of the Rings to be just one book, but it's like broken up into three parts. So if I refer to book two, it's really one overall book. That's what I mean. But anyway, so we're going to look at also the reason why I say zero in on 118. I really want to look at my show number 118 from before, because it happens to be the only show of mine in well over 200 videos focusing in on sky phenomena and cloak and craft and things of that nature. The only video where the YouTube censorship, they made it so that there's 0 likes. It's the only show where they actually managed to make it 0 likes. And I'm making a big deal out of that because I have at least 1 like in the mix, and they even took that away. So, but on no other shows. So it kind of makes me wonder what was so interesting. Oh, and I'm looking at the time, it's 8:11. And if you flip that around, it's 1:18 p.m. What was so special in that show that the platform decided to really censor it down? Now, back in the day, again, this is like 5 years ago when I started posting some of these shows. Back in the day, I noticed that the shows that I posted that had some really nice spiritual wisdoms, especially those from the Native Americans, whenever I had Native American sayings or wisdoms or like medicine type things, readings in there, they would also, the censorship, they would also, reduce down the likes to 0. So it's just interesting. Oh, hey, welcome, Sarah T. I was just saying that the focus of the show is going to take a fresh look at my show number 118 from 5 years ago, because that's the only show in my entire listing of almost 1,000 shows now where the platform made it impossible to do any likes. It goes to 0, which is weird. So my question is, and a lot of these shows I start off with the topic is, yes, I'm meditating lightly or deeply connected and quick, whatever, to see what the next topic of each week should be. And this one, something just said, yeah, look at why. It starts off with the question, why are there 0 likes on there? So what in that show was so, rattling to make it, heavily censored? Now, there could be a couple possibilities. So there's some very key information encoded in the books, Lord of the Rings. And I do start off with a quote, in that show. And also, I'm going to get into, in that book, The Lord of the Rings, they also talk about the different ages and how years were counted one way for all of Middle Earth, the majority of the lands. But in the Shire, where the hobbits live, if you know anything about this fantasy lore, they had a different way of counting the calendar called the Shire Reckoning. And I'm going to get into that after I start talking about some of the cloak and craft from that show number 118. So my question is, was it something about the Lord of the Rings that I brought up that kind of triggered a flag? Or was it the cloak and craft and sky phenomenon I was showing? So I'm only going to take a few excerpts from that show because I did post the link up to 118 fresh, in the post section. But as always, I have my little slide deck. So I'm just going to go through a few. I'm not going to belabor this one tonight. Tonight, I'm not feeling so high energy. I don't know about all of you, but it's been a really weird week. I know we say it every week now, but extra strange with the energies. I had about 2 days where I was kind of like taken out, had a headache, had bad thoughts coming in that weren't my own. And it was really kind of like a in a spiritual battle, if you will, bringing God in heavy and like, make that go away. And, a conscious effort to kick that to the curb, which I did do. But anyway, that also kind of affected the flow of this show, or the, thanks. Sarah says, yes, agreed, right? I know I've seen it on other people's shows too. It's a lot of people are feeling this way. There's something in the air, and it ain't good. So we've got to actively like warrior up, power up, and kick it to the curb. But that did have kind of an influence. I don't want to say it negatively impacted, because, I look at every adverse thing just as a challenge to overcome. Like, as you can see, my spirit of the show is what? They made it so that there were 0 likes on this show out of like 1,000. Well, yeah, we're going to highlight it today then. You better believe it, right? Let's just go roll those sleeves up and go right in. So let me just mark the show here. So it's 0 in on 118 Sky Tumbling. I'm going to take this show in so many different directions. And if you bear with me, what I was saying, and I interrupted myself, was I started off in one direction. I was getting like clear focus on where we'll take the show, not only, what it was doing to my, my 118 show, but also the number 118. And you start looking that up. And that brought me to the tower in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. It called Merdeka 118. I have a picture on my post section where you just see the top, popping up out of clouds. That's, tower situation. Then I thought, in my show 118, I did talk about, I have a quote from the Ents, very kind of magical quote from the Ents in The Lord of the Rings. And it came from the book called The Two Towers. So a tower theme started going, also kind of reaching for the heights, because that can get us into Tower of Babel. And that gets us into a whole nother little trail. So if you will, I don't like the word indulge me, but you know what I mean. I'm going to take you a little bit on my thought process, which is going to weave all over the place, but hit on a lot of interesting little topics here and there. And like I say, anything that I present is more for a food for thought, a little springboard of topics. Maybe there's a word that activates something or inspires something in you. Maybe there's absolutely nothing in these shows, but the point is, I know I'm just supposed to kind of drop all of this stuff. It's like a drop and go, I call it, right? And then maybe we, and hopefully the main thing is that we all have fun along the way. It's a Saturday night, right? So anyway, getting back to my second time interrupting myself, the negative energies that I was talking about, those weird thoughts coming in, I absolutely knew they weren't mine. And kicking them to the curb, that kind of put a kibosh, kind of put the wet blanket on my inspired, start to getting this show topic together and this and that. So it kind of put me in a void zone. I wasn't feeling it. Even tonight, I'm like, do I even want to come on? I mean, I love to have time with all of you. So, Sarah says she experienced that too. Thanks for letting me know. And also, guys, do let me know if there's any breakups in the, glitches in the transmission. Everything should be fine. I'm hardwired into the internet, but you never know. But be sure to let me know in the chat if you don't mind. Otherwise, if this stream gets cut for any reason, I'll just pop back on again. Give me a couple minutes to get back on. I'll just say part 2. But anyway, those negative streaming things coming in from wherever really kind of, got to the point where I don't get headaches that much, but I felt it like in the back of my head. So I knew it was some other foreign energy coming in, because I wasn't stressed about anything. So my nice flow of, I'll do the show on this and weave it in. Like I like to weave the story with a lot of detail. I kind of got like the wet blanket thrown on it through those negative energies. However, like I said, I didn't let that daunt me. If anything, it's just a challenge. For me, if anyone says, there's a problem, to me, it's just a challenge in disguise. You can go right over that speed bump. We don't have to stop at it and look at it, right? And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm just not meant to go along that flow where I was headed. So I looked at it as it was happening for me, not to me, that I kind of got stopped in my tracks on my flow of preparing this. Because as I was going to look at that Merdeka, that tower in Malaysia, Merdeka 118, I started also, I liked where it was going, but also at the same time, I'm like, it's kind of a threat. I don't really feel it now. Not that it was negative, but it was more like, let's just leave that to the side, okay? And like I said, that's one of those maybe drop and go items. If you don't know anything about that tower, it's dubbed, Merdeka 118 is a skyscraper, dubbed the second tallest tower in the world at this point. And I put in the posts, I put some images of it, and I put in there also just for fun, I know in the esoteric circles, and we're looking at some of these hidden meanings and codes and stuff. That tower I looked up specifically does have a floor number 13, unlike a lot of towers. So that's interesting. So that tower is going to be a drop and go for you guys to take a look at that if it interests you. I just thought it was really weird, really uncanny that it had 118 floors. That's why it's called Merdeka 118. And I posted earlier, I removed it. I'll probably put it back. I'll put it in the description area of this show and after it airs. There was a Marvel movie last year. I didn't see it, called Thunderbolts. And the whole big promotion of that movie was that Florence Pugh and her character, I think it's Yelena somebody, it opens up with spoiler alert, jumping off of the very top of that Merdeka 118 tower. And so there's a whole story behind that there. And on the little clip that I'm going to post, there's another scene right after, I think right after it, again, I didn't see the movie, sometime after that jump, she's walking down the street and she apparently does a job. It's kind of like espionage, action hero world, right? And apparently she looks back and like a whole floor is blown out of a building, which they actually did detonate in the movie. And it's very reminiscent of 911. So we've got the 118, meets kind of like the 911 in that movie. I haven't seen the movie. I don't plan on watching it, but I think there's a lot of, quote unquote code in there. Also, just in a general search on 118, because I thought, all right, that's a very specific number. And again, the only one of all my shows where they put 0 likes on, including removing my own, so I know something's up. I also saw there was another reference kind of loosely connecting 118 and 911 is there's apparently a TV show or streaming show, whatever they call it these days, called something 118. And they touch on, it's like a fire station or firehouse has that number and they deal with 9/11. So I just thought it was kind of weird. So that's what I'm saying. Like when I started shaping up the show, it was kind of like gangbusters taking me down one direction into this tower stuff with 118. And then I'm like, no, then, something interrupted in the middle of the week to kind of back me off of that. So what we're going to do instead is still talk about a lot of fun stuff. I'm going to start off by reading the, I think, I'll take this sequentially. So I'm just taking excerpts from my 118 show. And I think what I'll do is I will start off by reading the quote that I have in the very beginning of the show. Then I'm going to take us through some of the highlighting the cloaking craft that I want to mention from that show 118. Because again, I'm not sure, did it get center flagged for the craft that I'm showing or in the phenomenon in the sky? Or did it get flagged for some of the very encoded messages coming in through Lord of the Rings? We'll see. So I'll show the craft. I'll do the quote from Treebeard and Ent in Lord of the Rings. We'll look at the craft. And then we'll see where else this wants to go. Probably go into some etymologies of towers, get into some tower cards and the tarot, and we're going to kind of make a journey all over the place. So like I said, bear with me. I meander. I don't go point A to point B in a straight shot always, even though I have some structure to my slides. Today's a meandering day. Absolutely. So if you're in that same wavelength, great. If not, maybe, join this in on the replay if you're in that, same energy. So here I'm going to show from my show 118, the original show, 118 under my videos section. I start off with like a little word wisdom spirit of the day page. And this is, I'm just going to kind of hold it up as I read the quote over here from Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. And it comes from the second book called The Two Towers. Within that book, it's called Book 3, Chapter 4, and then it's just called Treebeard. So I want to read this quote, and we will come back and revisit what this all means in the Lord of the Rings world after I show the cloaking craft. So this is just kind of setting a tone that we will come back to later. So I'll just read it straight up. Treebeard lifted 2 great vessels and stood them on the table. They seemed to be filled with water, but he held his hands over them, and immediately they began to glow, one with a golden and the other with a rich green light. And the blending of the 2 lights lit the bay, as if the sun of summer was shining through a roof of young leaves. Looking back, the hobbits saw that the trees in the court had also begun to glow, faintly at first, but steadily quickening until every leaf was edged with light, some green, some gold, and some red as copper, while the tree trunks looked like pillars molded out of luminous stone. So anyway, that passage just really captivated me when I read it. And again, this show aired on September 22nd, which is in this, Lord of the Rings lore. The birthday, shared birthday, different years by Bilbo and Frodo Baggins. And actually, I'm going to jump around. Let's just jump around. Let's do it. I'm going to jump around. We'll get to the cloaking craft in a minute. But now I say I got to jump around. So the birthdays being September 22nd, which I think is a very important date. The fact that they have two lead characters have it on the same day. Bilbo is the elder, and Frodo is the nephew of Bilbo. And I know I'm kind of keeping it generic. If you don't know Lord of the Rings, sorry. Maybe after this show, look up a synopsis of it, like the plot summary. But what's interesting is, as I said, that the hobbits, which are, shorter than elves and dwarves, and they're very connected in the earth, and they live, under hills and in like hobbit holes, and they're very connected to the earth. They live in what's called the Shire, and the Shire has its own calendar outside of like the main Middle Earth territory, as I mentioned earlier. So the birthdays in the Shire Reckoning are 1290, and that for the older, and then 1368, for the younger hobbit. Now, in the world of man or Middle Earth, those birthdays are 2890 and happening in 2968. So in Shire Reckoning, it's 1600 years difference from what they're counting the calendar out, like, let's just say, like in the main world. So I thought that's very interesting. There's two different calendars showing two different times. And I think, again, that's encoded messages into the Lord of the Rings to show us that in our world, we already know there are all these different calendars, right? Julian, Gregorian, like what is the real starting point? And then you throw in the resets in the mix, if you're following that at all. A lot of really great YouTube channels out there are showing that there have been different resets with not just the great flood of Noah, that's epically told in different texts, but they're multiple. So then the question comes up like, yeah, where are we really in our time? Oh, and Sarah says, I enjoy the movie and TV series, but have not read the books yet. Okay, Sarah, I highly recommend reading the books because I've seen both. I've seen the movies and I've read all of the books, and the books just have such a richness and depth to them. And when they get into like speaking the elven language or singing, and there's, different characters in there that are really interesting. And so, yeah, I highly recommend it. And yeah, just go like at your own pace, one book at a time. But I was actually, I usually don't like to use this phrase, but blown away because at the depth and the detail in the books. And I'm talking about the Lord of the Rings books. So not The Hobbit. So that brings up a good point. When you read The Hobbit, and you can pick which order you want to read in, I recommend reading just the Lord of the Rings first and then go to The Hobbit, because to me, they're written by two totally different authors. Or if it's the same author in the very first book, maybe that's just the regular author, J.R.R. Tolkien, writing it. But then when it gets to the Lord of the Rings, somebody was straight up channeling something, because the writing quality is day and night. And I don't buy it that it's just the evolution of the writer. It's like so far a bridge apart between the two books. Like it cannot be, like I'm just saying, it cannot be the same author, or, one was channeling, or the second book is by a different author. I'll just say it. So anyway, and Sarah says, my son reads the books. He really enjoys them. So yes, I should. Yeah, actually, Sarah, I even read mine with my child back in the day. And we sat outside. So it was really nice to, connect with the theme. And I wasn't expecting to like it much. I just thought, hey, this is a great way to, we exchanged, like I would read some, I'd give it to my child, the child would read some. It was a nice thing to do together. And I really got into it. I mean, I really thought it was really good. So that's how I got lit up by it, like pun intended, lit up, right? I got my Gondor University shirt from the book. Sarah says beautiful things. Yeah, it was really beautiful to do together. And especially if you can do it like in a park under trees outside on a nice day, it just goes, with the whole theme. Again, this is from a park. We didn't read this particular day at the park, but it just, it just really makes it a much more enriched experience if you can do that, if it's good weather, of course. Okay, so anyway, back to our counting of the years between. I have a lot of screenshots. I'm going to read some. Let's see, just to give this a little more clarity than what I'm trying to explain. Yeah, if you bear with me, I'm just going to read a few things because this is part of the trail. I just do screenshot. So it says, yeah, September 22nd is the shared birthday of Bilbo and Frodo. Let's see. While they share the exact same calendar day, the two hobbits were born exactly 7-8 years apart. And I mentioned already. So it's called the Third Age year, or the Shire Reckoning years, like I explained earlier. And let's see. Okay, so I want to just clarify the ages of Middle Earth in this Tolkien universe of Lord of the Rings. So it says the history of J.R.R. Tolkien's world is divided into several major periods, primarily defined by the rise and fall of great powers. Now, I'm finding it worthwhile to read this because I think there are some hints at what really was going on in our world. So I just want to read this. And again, you'll know if there's anything in it for you or not, but I'll just like drop it and go, as they say. So the first age began with the awakening of the elves and ended after the apocalyptic War of Wrath, which resulted in the sinking of the western lands of Beleriand, I think it is. Hang on. Oh, Beleriand. Okay. Then there's the second age, started with the founding of the Elven realms and Numenor. It lasted 3,441 years and ended with Sauron's first defeat by the last alliance of elves and men. And very quickly into it, I'll say it's not really a spoiler alert. Sauron is the all evil, epitome of evil in this, and personification of evil in the story. Let's see. Okay, so I'll backtrack. We had the first age, we had the second age, then we get to the third age, the period in which The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings take place. It lasted 3,021 years and concluded with the final destruction of the One Ring and Sauron's downfall. Fourth age began with the departure of the ring bearers like Frodo and Gandalf from the Grey Havens, making the fading of the elven magic and the beginning of the Age of Men. And then they say, so what is Shire Reckoning? I know I explained it a little bit earlier. Hobbits did not care about the grand wars and kings' dating systems used by the elves or men of Gondor. Instead, they created Shire Reckoning, or SR. The origin year 1 of Shire Reckoning corresponds to 1601 of the Third Age, which is the year hobbits officially colonized the Shire. So I'm just going to stop there. If you want to dive in deeper, it just kind of sets us off to, I think, a very big tell as far as what's going on with our real history, our modern history and reality of, what's going on in the book. Now, since the book is called The Two Towers, and that's, where I read the little passage from the Ents from, is this one. I didn't think I was really going to go too much into the tower symbolisms, because even in my posts, I said, well, I'm talking about Merdeka 118, that's dubbed the second tallest tower in Malaysia. But I don't think I'm going to head down the tower route. But then today, surprise, I am going to go down the tower route a little bit. So since we're talking about the two towers, it was reminding me of a lot of things. So we've got the tower card and tarot. I'll get back to that later. Actually, do I want to do it now? You know what? I'm going to do this out of order. This is kind of like a total impromptu, like, let's see where we want to go with this show. I'm going to read what the tower card is in tarot, just, classically by definition. And actually, let me show you first. This is kind of when I'm going to read now. They're referring to this classic, kind of Rider-Waite deck. Tower card. Usually there's a tower, of course. There's lightning involved and a number 16 or 7 in numerology. In this one, they've got a crown at the top, and they've got people, one's like diving down with their hands, head first, and the other's kind of like falling on their head, really a wild stuff going on in here, right? So let me read just the basic definition in tarot for this. I'll read it straight up from my screenshot. So for people who aren't familiar, and even if you are, the way this is written lends some good insights here. So the Tower card is a major arcana, or representing sudden upheaval, chaos, and radical revelations. It signifies a moment where your foundations are abruptly shaken, forcing you to abandon false beliefs and illusions so you can clear the way for authentic growth and a necessary new beginning. Key symbolism. The tower represents rigid structures, ego, and belief systems built on shaky foundations. Lightning strike, the sudden divine intervention or unexpected epiphany that shatters the old way of thinking. Falling figures, leaving behind pride and comfort zones, representing the shock and loss of control associated with radical life changes. Anyone out there having a tower moment? I think it's been like one long tower moment since 2020. Okay, when you get this card in the upright, and I'll just show it again, key for reference. When you get that in the upright, it's a wake-up call. It indicates an unforeseen event, such as a job loss, sudden breakup, or personal crisis that completely disrupts your status quo. While it can be a jarring and frightening experience, it is ultimately a release. And I like that. That's a really key phrase. It's a release. Like, not putting judgment on it as good or bad is important. The destruction strips away things that were no longer serving you. Also key, right? Sounds like a positive thing, even though it seemingly to the physical eyes looks like, all hell and, awful. But some of the stuff, it's taken away what no longer serves you. Also allowing you to build something better and more aligned with your true self. So it's a stripping away of the fake life and letting an authentic life come through. And then I'm not going to bring up the reverse. I'll leave that to you all to look that up. Of course, I'll read these. It's just contextual meanings. There's like 3 points here. When this comes up in the matter of love and relationships, it signals a major breaking point. It points to a relationship crumbling under the weight of built-up issues, lies, or incompatibility. It can be painful, but it removes unhealthy dynamics. In the context of career and finance, it represents a sudden shakeup, such as a company restructuring, a lost job, or a failed business venture. It forces you to pivot and seek out a more fulfilling professional path. And in terms of health, it indicates extreme stress, physical burnout, or sudden health revelation. It reminds you to pay closer attention to how you treat your body. So, when I first started getting any kind of readings, for myself, for my personal growth, spiritual growth, I used to dread when the card reader or this, spiritual intuitive guide would pull up either the Tower or the Death card, obviously. But when you realize, the further you go on your journey, you realize very quickly to not be afraid of those cards, but to welcome them and to know that it is shaking things up, because we need to look at it. We would just be complacent and miss a lot of this if we didn't have these moments. And also we grow through them, obviously. And they do lead to our ultimate good and growth, even though at the time they don't feel so great, right? And Sarah says, embrace. Yes, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely embrace it. And also know that there's nothing we can't handle. When you get strong enough in your spiritual path, or you've just not even strong enough, you've just been through enough crap, I think, too, where you just have had it, you get to a point where you realize, okay, still standing. Universe, whatever, outer world, throw at me what you will. I'll just keep going. I'll outwait you. I'll outcreate you, whatever this darkness is. There's multiple dark nights of the soul, multiple, death of the old things that we go through. And no, they don't feel great. And just when you think you're done with them, you're like, wow, I've really learned some powerful lessons. I guess we're done. Guess what? Lightning comes back, smacks you in the ass again, because this is a growing process. It spirals. So we kind of grow in a spiral up, but in that spiraling up, we also have little dips along the way as we go up, right? And so, that lightning will come back. I couldn't find in this deck the Tower cards. This is the closest thing I could find. It just summed it up for me, seeing the lightning bolt. It's just coming through and just splitting the heck out of that tree, seemingly like slicing it in two. But what do we know? Nature cannot be defeated. It's going to come back again and again and again. Look at, if you try to take out weeds, or if you try to take out, certain kinds of bamboo, I don't recommend this, but I've seen people, they even get gasoline and set it on fire because it just cannot uproot it. It just keeps going and going and going, right? Oh, and yeah, Sarah says the onion keeps shedding with some beautiful, also sunflowers. Oh, and since Sarah's put some sunflower emojis up, I'm laughing because in the theme of towers, I was just thinking recently, I was driving along a back road somewhere, and I saw these people had deliberately planted I think they're called like skyscraper sunflowers, really giant ones. And they were just thriving. And so I'm not promoting a brand, but I didn't like that masking tape these out yet. But so that inspired me to go get some sunflower seeds. So I'm going to go plant these eventually. But we've got the American Giant. And then we have, I'll hold them up together if I can. Then we have the Mammoth Russian. I didn't know there were so many. I just thought there was one called Skyscraper, but apparently there's a lot. And then there's one just called Mammoth. But look at the difference. I'm like, what's the difference with all these things? And I can't really tell too much between these two. But, you know, look at the centers. We have just the yellow and then the darker one. So I will plant these. And if I do, and if I have success, meaning, you know, squirrels and other things don't like very uncover the seeds. And if they actually grow, I will take some like video footage of them in the future. So wish me luck. I don't consider myself actually a green thumb, but I think this is a good summer to learn and a good season, you know, to try to learn how to grow stuff. So I'm going to give it a try. All right. So let's see. Oh, I also wanted to go one more thing with the tower cards, and then I will get to my cloaking craft slides. And again, I thought I would be doing this stuff at the end, but oh well, we'll just take it on now. Here is, I've shown this in another, hang on one second. Don't have the other right box. Okay, it's here somewhere. Oh, here it is hiding. Okay, so I showed these on another show, but this is a deck, you know, it's the Lord of the Rings deck. And it's kind of wood carving, you know, style cards. And I have it in English, and I also have it in German. So if you are also a fan of different languages, and you also like tarot or oracle cards, just a fun fact, you can get some often in different languages, in Spanish and, you know, different translations. So this one, I wanted a one-to-one comparison between German and the English version. And so I'll show you what that looks like. So in this case, they keep the artwork the same, but, you know, you'll see here's their tower moment. And again, if you know the story, this is in Mordor, so where the evil lives, and it's the tower or der Turm. And with this deck, and both of them, they have this huge map. So instead of a guidebook, I'm not going to do it, but, you know, you unfold this and it's like really big. It's really huge. So what I've done is already kind of zoomed in on this. So I'm going to be reading just very quickly this from the Tower card. And I'm going to read it in English. I don't know if I'm going to read it the German version. I may just post it because my mouth is not really working well in German right now, but we'll see. By the time I read this, if I feel like taking it on live, we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to read this. The Tower, and they also put a little subtitle, Barad-dûr. So, you know what? I need my flashlight on this. I need extra light. Give me a moment. And as I look for this, I hope you all are having a great weekend, wherever you are. Okay, so the Tower moment here in this Lord of the Rings deck says, acts of destruction make way for radical creation. When this dark fortress topples into your reading, get ready to traverse the fallout. When we get it upright, which we'll read the upright, the fall of Barad-dûr made way for hope, for peace, and for a long-desired unity across Middle-earth. Similarly, something in your life, maybe something you never expected would collapse, has met its demise. It's understandable to have mixed feelings, but try to set your sights on the potential you have to make something even better. And actually, I'll read it if we got it reversed, which we'll just say we got it upright. But if the card came out upside down, we would read, Saruman's cruel and oppressive ideology molded Barad-dûr into a symbol of evil, and it needed to be destroyed. In reverse, this card signifies a similar need in your own life. Are there outdated systems of belief holding you back from growth? Why not send them crashing down? So I like this because we're not a victim. When we see the Tower card, I'm sure most of you already know that. It's not, victim energy. Or if there is victim energy, it's kind of like that was then. Take the reins, own it, and gallop on out of there. Take control of your situation and flip it around, right? So again, I just think it's all coming up in this show because it's an important thing to remember. to not fear the Tower of Death cards in the tarot. And I wanted to say too, with this like more rider weight one. Oh, and I have decided, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and read these off camera. I'll probably do it as little shorts or something, and I'll read the German version in German too when I feel like, into it. I don't feel it right now. But when I was looking at this Tower card, it reminded me of that, little nursery rhyme that, at least I'm based in the U.S. Most people in the U.S. learn it as a little kid. The Jack and Jill, right? Jack and Jill, for whatever reason, I'm getting that energy. Jack and Jill, went up the hill to fetch the pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after, the two figures, which also reminds me of tower, meaning water tower. When you think about tower, and this is kind of what came to me today. So I said I got interrupted on my flow of how the show topics would be, what topics would be involved. And it really did put me at a standstill until maybe an hour and a half ago before the show. And I was meditating. I'm like, God, what wants to come out? And so it took me very strong into a tower direction of really thinking about tower in ancient times and in modern times. So what do we know? What do we talk about? Cell towers, right? So we've got towers with dealing with those waves, whatever they're doing. And we have towers with radio towers, back in the day before they even came out with television. They had the radio towers, all about transmitting stuff in the ethers. And then we start to get into the whole, whether Tesla was an actual person. I know there's some like conjecture there. Whatever the case, it's what he symbolizes. Tesla and the Tesla Tower, right? That was like the original free Wi-Fi. We shouldn't be paying for any of this. But anyway, we get into those, waves in the ethers. And it's said that if you build a tower, there is a difference in the atmospheric density. I'm not going to get the scientific part right, but with the ethers, it is easier to transmit things the higher up you go. Okay, that just kind of makes sense. But anyway, we have all those types of towers. And then again, I was getting into the story. I'm going to loop back into the Lord of the Rings with the two towers. And there's actually a third. So earmuffs for Sarah if you don't want a spoiler alert, but I think you'll be okay with it. Oh, you say, oh, it is? Thanks. So I want to get into why it's the two towers. And because I think there's something that I might, read on this little, synopsis here that might, again, be a key word or phrase or something that means something to somebody. But anyway, it was something about the towers kept coming up. Obviously, we had that Merdeka 118 is something about a tower. So let me just read this about the two towers of the Lord of the Rings book. It says, the specific choice of the towers highlights a major theme of the second volume here. Let's see. Hang on. I think I missed a page. Oh, yeah, I did. Sorry. Okay, spoiler alert. I don't think it'll really ruin anything, though. In J.R.R. Tolkien's novel, The Two Towers, the title specifically refers to the Orthanc, Saruman's citadel in Isengard, and he's like a antagonist, and Minas Morgul, the corrupted fortress of the Nazgul. And that's actually the one I was showing. That's the one depicted in this Lord of the Rings deck here. Okay, a version of it. So let's see. So just know that, just without getting too much into the story, the corrupted forest of the Nazgul is just like all darkness. Okay. Together they symbolize the twin forces of tyranny and the escalating peril faced by the divided Fellowship of the Ring, people that go on the quest in the story. So it says that the original authorial intent, and I'm just reading you stuff, like I said, took screenshots of what I could find on the internet. And what I read here seems consistent, seems like an okay interpretation. Oh, Sarah says, all good. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but, and you may have to read it and then come back and hear what I'm saying if this sounds like gibberish. But this is kind of, I know, based for people who, a little biased for people who may have already read it or seen the movies, but I forgot you did see movies. Okay, so the original authorial intent. While the film suggests the two towers are Saruman's Orthanc and Sauron's Barad-dûr, Tolkien himself clarified in an editorial note in the Fellowship of the Ring that the book's events are primarily dominated by Orthanc and Minas Morgul. The narrative structurally splits into two. Oops, hang on. I lost my place. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I was just there. Give me a moment. Sorry about that. My screen jumped. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. That took way too long to find this. As I prefaced with this whole show, I'm a little slow and off today. The energies have been really asteroid kicking today. Okay, so the narrative structurally splits into two parallel tracks, with each half of the story revolving around one of these fortresses. So the Orthanc is Saruman's dark obsidian tower in Isengard. This structure serves as the primary focal point for Gandalf, Aragorn, and here we go. And the forces of Rohan. Minas Morgul, the glowing wicked tower of sorcery. This structure serves as the terrifying hurdle and focal point at the end of Frodo and Sam's journey through the treacherous landscape toward Mordor. Why the two towers? The specific choice of towers highlights a major theme of the second volume. Two fronts of evil. The title emphasizes that the forces of good are being simultaneously crushed on two fronts. Saruman in the west aims to conquer Rohan and build his own empire, while Sauron in the east amasses his dark armies. And of course, the evil is, all converging and going against the man of Middle-earth, trying to crush mankind. So the symbol of oppression, both towers hold Palantiri, seeing stones. And in modern context, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of code in this Lord of the Rings. Look at that whole organization, Palantir, in our reality and what they're doing. They take it from this book, Palantiri, seeing stones, that allow the villains to communicate, spy, and coordinate their malicious efforts against the free peoples. Gosh, sorry about this. Of Middle-earth. Okay, hang on. All right. Anyway, I'm not going to read all of it, but there's other symbolism where, let's see, where there was originally in the story, they don't really tell you in the story, but apparently the backstory is there was a Tower of the Sun. There was also a Tower of the Moon. And then we get to another tower, the White Tower of Minas Tirith, which is my shirt, Gondor, the city of Gondor. There's a city, it's referred to as the White City, and the tower, the White Tower of Gondor. And let's see. Let me get to that one. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead through here. But that white tower that I'm talking about in the city of Gondor talks about the endurance of men. The city represents the fate and glory, resilience, and history of the Númenóreans. And I'll leave that to you guys to look up the Númenóreans and what they do in the whole lore of Lord of the Rings. They don't talk about them in the Lord of the Rings, so that's something to look up anyway, and it predates Lord of the Rings. The hope of a new king, it is the resting place of the kings of Gondor and houses the white tree, a symbol that remains lifeless until the return of the rightful king Aragorn. A beacon of civilization, while it is a city of stone built out of necessity and fear, it serves as the ultimate bulwark, protecting the free peoples of the West from the dark forces of Sauron. And then it goes on and on. It has architectural meanings. There's 7 levels to it, etc. So anyway, I know I spent a bit of time, more time than I wanted to talk about those towers from the Lord of the Rings lore. But now we'll kind of depart from there. There might be interesting code in there that kind of gives you some aha moments. I think, if I even read these again now, I think I read these probably about 7 years ago, I bet you I would get a whole nother suite and level of meanings, through reading those books. So I think now is a really good time to be reading them, especially where we are at in our epic spiritual warfare battle going on right now, right? Especially, if any of you, felt it kicking in this week. Okay, so anyway, looking at towers, I started kind of looking at the etymology of towers. Where were their ancient origins? Where was it first mentioned? One of they say, just on a quick internet search, says there's a famous surviving example of a tower called Tower of the Winds in Athens. I've never heard of it. I'm not even going to go into if I give you dates, we'll put it in quotes, because I started off with the show. I think, they were onto it with the Middle-earth ages of counting time. And then the Shire had its own calendar. I think, again, anything that we look at and are told it's, this antiquity is this old or whatever, I think something's off with the years big time. not only just like on the calendar year, but when we were told that, they were actually constructed and stuff. So in this case, this Tower of the Winds in Athens was supposedly completed in the first or second century BC. And it's a octagonal, marble structure. And supposedly it had sundials, a wind vane, and an internal water clock. So anyway, I was just looking up, okay, we're talking towers. What's one of the, earliest ones? Let's see if that's just a little image of it there. Okay. Then when looking up the word tower, we get into stuff with root words, whether you're looking at the Pi, the Proto-Indo, whatever it is, European model, or ancient Greek, or whatever, however far back you go. Some of the roots of it, or if you know other languages too, it's like Tor in German. That's why I brought up this German deck for Lord of the Rings, Tor. But Tor can also mean gate. And when we get to gate, we get into also portals. So around a lot of towers, there is portal energy, gateway energy, and all of that. And then when we get to thinking of towers, of course, my mind went to the Tower of Babylon. And I've talked about that earlier. And let's see, it comes from Babylon itself, translates, it's a translation in Akkadian to Babel. Okay, it comes from Bebelim, I guess that's how you say it, Bebelim, which literally translates to gate of God or gate of the gods. So supposedly Bebu means gate, and the Elim or Elim part is the God part. And so when you look at different structures in antiquity, I've covered on another show where I say it's high story, baby. I talk about Babylon and the Ishtar Gate, and I'll put that link in this at the end of the show too, in the description area below, the link to the Pergamon Museum that actually has, they stripped the cladding of the Ishtar Gate and reconstructed it in that museum in Berlin. And actually it's going under a renovation, which won't be ready for like 10 or 11 years. I find that very suspect it would take that long. That means people can't see, the Ishtar Gate, the Babylon Gate. And what that was is it's a processional way that led to the throne room. And what do we know about a throne room? It's the leaders ascend the throne, right? Ascension. Well, ascension, we have that in a spiritual sense, but we also have it in a nuts and bolts physical sense. It's said that in some of these temples in antiquity, there were only like a couple or one, or, the very small circle of the priests or whatever, who they were only the ones allowed to go into the temple stele and whatever, only they could go in. Well, what were they doing? In some cases, they say that it is said, there's good case for it, that there could have been, and this will tie into the rest of the show, UFOs or craft that would come and land down. If you think about it, they were up on a mountain or like a structure like a ziggurat, where, people also call ziggurats like a spaceport. The craft could come down. There's, usually like a little enclosure, so you wouldn't see it. And what happens? The priest goes up to communicate what? With the divine. Well, in a lot of cases, it could have been with these ETs who were kind of ruling some of these societies. When you look at Babylon, their patron god was Marduk. And Marduk, the more you look into that character, could be equated with a form of kind of a Zeus. I think the planet equated with that one was Jupiter. The symbol for Marduk is the dragon. There's heavily dragon symbology, especially in the Ishtar Gate. That Ishtar Gate is supposedly patronizing, or patrons, gods of that are Ishtar, Inanna, Isis. There's a lot of names for that one, that goddess, or and Marduk. So again, when you want to break it down, to me, those mythological characters, probably very much real characters, to me, ETs, ET races, ET figureheads. Anyway, I know I'm like moving all over the place, but Ishtar Tor in German, that's Ishtar Gate. So again, we get that Tor, Tur, door, portal. Getting to the throne is the ascension. It's just really interesting when you look at all of these royal lineages, right? It's said that the royal lines are just emissaries or kind of ambassadors to these ETs that came down, did their bloodline thing. That's why the bloodlines are so important to all of the royalty, right? And then the ETs kind of left these rulers, right, to rule over everybody. But it makes sense to me that with the ascension of the throne, it's the idea of trying to that Tower of Babel, trying to reach higher heights and trying to get to those godly levels, which to me were these ETs, or kind of like false gods, right? Anyway, when you get into the etymology of all of this, it gets really interesting. So, gate of the gods, the Bebu meaning gate, the Elim gods, so gateway to God, Babylon makes sense, right? And with the forms. So when we get to the Tower of Babel, there's another, I'm trying to get to the etymology of it. I can't find it right away. I think I mentioned it on my other show, but you get another breakdown of Babel, and that's means confusion. So, we talk about babbling, you're just like babbling nonsense. That's all confusion. So again, that's all tied into this. And to me now, it's just coming out now, what I'm thinking is, you could even say that it could be a certain frequency that kind of scrambled people. I talked at the beginning about the Wi-Fi towers and stuff. Maybe some kind of signal was sent out by craft or whatever to make it so, people are kind of numbed out or couldn't communicate with each other, when we know this, the classic biblical Tower of Babel story is what? Everyone suddenly couldn't understand each other. They were kind of sent asunder, right? Anyway, just food for thought there. Just coming up now with that. So let's see. Let me just see if I can find it. And even the word Bible, an argument can be made that comes from the Akkadian or Phoenician. There's a city called Biblios or Biblos, so that's where we get bibliothèque and book, right? All right. All right, I talked about all of that. Then why did I go in this direction? Oh, and then I'll just, as a little aside, because we're here anyway, and I did mention I'm going to go like this with my story weaving today. It's not a direct shot A to B. We're going to wander all over the place. As I was looking things up too, thinking of Babylon, and if you look at any of those reliefs, you've got these men and they've got these big woolly beards. I mean, they're well maintained and groomed. But then I just got thinking about the whole, what is this? We've got Gandalf, we've got the quintessential painting of the god figure is this old white dude with the gray flowing beard. It's just like everywhere you turn in the Bible, everyone's got the beard. And there is a reason for that. There's a lot of reasons for that, for them having this. But anyway, I was just kind of going down that path. It's like, why does everybody considered to be wise have to have a damn beard? And obviously you have to be male for that. But then that led me, just again, this is kind of like a little side tour. That led me to the word beard. Okay, hang on. Okay, I kind of cut this off, but beard can come from Proto-Germanic. They had the word bardaz, a source of the Old Frisian baird, Middle Dutch Bert, B-A-E-R-T, and German Bart, B-A-R-T. So the name Bart, like Bart, I don't want to give them credit, but Bart Simpson, that's, Bart means actually beard. And let's see. And in Proto-Indo-European, they give the acronym PIE for that. It looks like Bardha or Bardhe. So the word barber, this is why it's taken me down this thread, and I just want to mention it, and then I'll drop and we'll go into the cloaking craft. But barber derives from the Latin word for beard, barba. Literally, a barber is someone who tends to beards. Okay, it makes sense, but I've never really thought about it. I don't know if you have. Then we have barb and Barbados, also derived from barba, the word barb, like an arrow point, also, right? Relates to the shape of the beard, while Barbados translates to the bearded ones, a name given to the island by the Portuguese explorers in reference to its hanging fig trees. Then we also have the word barbarian. Surprisingly, barbarian is not etymologically related to beard. It comes from the ancient Greek barbaros and onomatopoeic, onomatopoeic word mocking. Give me a moment. Let's see. Mocking the unintelligible babbling sound of foreign languages, like blah, blah, blah. Okay. So very interesting, right? That we come back around to all of that, kind of tying us back in with beard, because I was wondering, what is that with the spiritual or figures, you see with the long beard, they're supposed to be the wise ones, brings us all the way back around to Babel. I just thought that was a beautiful synchronicity. Oh, and hey, and welcome. Heidi's Patch Notes. Hey, welcome, Heidi. Good to see you. Okay, so anyway, that just brought me around there. And so now, after that fun little side trip, hopefully you thought it was fun. At least it was a journey, that's for sure. We'll get into the cloaking craft from the show 118. Now, again, you decide, did it get, taken down to 0 likes, which is kind of impossible for that show because of anything I might have dropped or mentioned with the Lord of the Rings content? Or is it from some of the sky observations? I don't know. But again, it's literally the only show that happened to of mine out of close to 1,000 so far. Just thought that's why we're looking at it now today. So I'm going to start off with this. I'm just taking a couple excerpts from my show 118 from about 5 years ago. For anyone who's new, I'm just repeating, newly joining in. So this is just looking to the east and just in a regular suburban neighborhood in Miami. And what caught my attention was it was early morning, just some of these darker, things and shapes, in the clouds. The sky atmospherically felt really strange. We have like this weird, more narrow, somewhat horizontal thing going off at an angle, while at the same time we have something coming up vertical. And again, in this low in the atmosphere, there's no reason why we have different like push and pulling and perpendicular things happening in the sky. If anything, it should just be cumulus clouds all just simply moving across. But here it felt like, this had a point to it, felt very triangular, that we have objects sitting in here. And again, it's by observation with physical eyes, but also just something felt really weird. And, even here we have a dark figure here. And I knew that when I just apply a little bit of upping and lowering the attributes of the photo, the contrast, the color saturation, little things, brightness, I knew different things were going to pop out of here. And I do recommend you go see the original show because I go over everything into detail. I don't want to do it here, but here's the same photo now with where I just upped the contrast and brightness and color saturation. And now you can see these are the actual solid elements. So that is a triangular, symmetrical kind of triangular configuration. That's an object. Same thing here. And then you can just see there's a bigger object behind. And then also more objects happening here. And so when we see a really dark object, and then we see this like tufted, material in front of it, that's not cloud, that's like a plasma, that's a cloaking material. So I'll just zoom in a little here, the old-fashioned way. And you can just see there's, that is not natural cloud formations. They have kind of a intelligent design of some type behind them. And especially when you get to this down here, like, what is this? And it gets T-boning into this. That doesn't happen with natural clouds. So the whole scene was strange, and it's why I called the show the number 118 Sky Tumbling, because it looked like these shapes, they're just kind of topsy-turvy and tumbling in the sky. So actually I'm going to take this, what I just showed you here, and I'm going to push it even further. If you can see, actually I do a side by side. I pushed it even further over here where I bleached it out, like, went really high up with the brightness, just to really pull out, what's going on over here. And so what happens is we start to really see the objects, that helps strip away all the other kind of smoke and mirrors. And when you see these dark chunks left over, those are solid objects, very solid, in fact. And again, look at this thing. It's so weird. There's no towers. This is all very low housing. If anything, trees are the tallest thing. And this has a very solid mass going vertically to whatever the structure is. So, then we've got very solid objects all over the place. So again, that's, cloaking craft happening in there. And then a slightly different timing, we have this scene. So this is the original photo, and this is like more pushing the enhancements on it. And so here we have, again, this is really low in the sky over a neighborhood. And there's no way by light physics you would have something bright whitish and then have dark gray like right next to it. I mean, they're too close together for that to be two totally different colors. And anyway, the light source is back here. This is implying the light source is happening way behind it. And so this is a self-illuminating cloud. I put cloud in quotes, meaning it's craft, it's cloaked. And something else is happening up here. And I push this out more with the contrast so you lose elements like this. This is something jutting out of this thing. It's not a natural cloud. And the fact that these two chunks here are parallel to each other, nothing in natural clouds would be pitched on an angle and have a nice spacing, and pitched at the same angle. So those are objects being cloaked. And then down here too, we get to something that's kind of arrow shaped, that's a more massive cloak and craft, all extremely low in our sky, right? So again, that's just a little something to maybe go look over at the original show. Now this is what I call a sky phenomenon, but really it's a cloak and craft as well. I'm not going to put up the original. This is after I've taken the original photo and pushed the attributes and done enhancement on it. So I've upped or, played around with the contrast, brightness, color saturation. But if you look at the show, you'll see the original in the sky. It felt weird. I've been doing this over 6 years. And at this point, I was already doing it over like 2 years. And it just, something felt weird right there in the sky. And as you can see, it is weird. There's like a ring, and you look at the overall shape. There's a point here, and I could see it to the naked eye, even without, doing this. Like in my mind's eye, I was already starting to see this after I, did some enhancement. And then I pushed it a little further, meaning played around with the enhancements on here. And then we get this. Sorry, it's kind of reverse order. But I, maxed out the brightness, and look what remains. An object, okay? So that's how you know you have object in your photos. You can, just really bleach it out and see what sticks. And look, now it can really see this, kind of triangular form. So to me, that's the front point, and that's the back. There's like some kind of circular element here. This is just extra heavy, like cloaking material plasma. This is insanely low in the sky, by the way. You see the tops of the trees. I was just walking in a neighborhood on the street, and I felt this thing right here. So again, very little thing, very easy to do. You got your camera phone on you. If you've got one, you're walking along. You can even just sense or feel something feels weird in the sky. Even if you don't see it with your eyes, just take a picture. And then literally, I guess maybe I'll do a video one day. Here, let me see if I can give an example. You can do this so fast. And actually, most of what I post in my post sections, I've literally just been outside, just looked at something, and in like 2 seconds, like literally, it just takes seconds. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to an example. Okay, hang on. Okay. It literally just, so say I've just taken this photo. I know it's kind of hard to see. Okay. That's a screenshot actually of what I just showed you. One of the things I showed you, but okay. Let's just say I just took that of the sky. Now, if you look down at your phone, you see the different share, edit, add to, trash. And again, it depends on what phone you have. In this case, all I do is go to edit. Okay. I'll just show you on my screen. Your phone might be slightly different. But see, I've just hit the button edit, and now I get questions, ask. I don't do any of that AI crap. But you see auto crop adjust, okay? And so this is I should preface, this is not an iPhone. This is just an Android, and you can do it on any kind of phone. As long as you can get to the editing tools on your photo, which come free with your phone usually. So now I hit adjust, okay? I hit that adjust button, and then look at the menu that comes up above. So sorry, trying to get this. So we have portrait light, brightness, contrast, ultra, HD. If I scroll over, I just swiped it over, we get tone, white point, highlights, shadows. There's, a lot of options. So seriously and literally, what I usually do, if you want to, take notes on this, is I go to contrast first. So here's your levels. I never hit the preset filters. That's not how I get the images. So, and I'm showing you because I invite all of you to do this, start taking pictures. And if you just do what I'm showing you now, and it takes 2 seconds, I go to contrast, you play with, I'm doing this reverse, so give me a pass. So you just, okay, hang on. Okay. So anyway, I go to contrast first, and you just play around, just swipe it left and right, and watch your photo of what's happening. Okay. Then I go to saturation, which is your colors. And you might have to go to a separate menu because my phone changed it on me. Hang on. Yeah. See, again, it depends on your phone. On my phone, I have to go to, what do they do? Actions. It's stupid, I think. Hang on. Hang on, guys. They changed this on an update on me. Here we go. No, they put it back. Okay, sorry. They just did an update on my phone. I had to go to 2 different menus to get to saturation. Now it's all in the same bar. So here we go. I showed you contrast. I played around with those levels. Now I'm going to hit, saturation. And I hit that little thing, and now it gives me this again. So now I can, move this one way or the other, watch the photo, and just play around moving that one way or the other. Then I go to, on my phone at least, see what's on yours. There's something called shadows and black point, and just choose either one. I end up choosing both. But then you slide that around and you try to go darker. And again, you're watching your image and watch to see if something pops up. And then a lot of this is intuitive. Later on, did shadows, then I might go to black point. Then I might play around with, they have white point and highlight, and they have a thing called tone. Okay, so they have tone, and then they have brightness. So just go along each one of these things and manually go up and down, slide it left and right, whatever. Watch your photo. And as you do that, you'll see different things, emerge. And this can also be done with nighttime photos. And again, a lot of times as you start doing this and start really, sky watching with this stuff, you may just have a feeling that something feels off. And you can't see it with your physical eyes, but you just know something's there. It may look like a total whiteout when you feel it, but just stop for a minute. Doesn't hurt. Just snap a quick photo. And then later when you have time, especially you might be driving at a light or on a bus or walking and just whatever, and you can't get to it right away. Just take the picture though. And then whenever you get home and have a moment, you do that quick little exercise. And literally that should only take a minute. So you pull up the photo, you go to edit, I go contrast. Oh, anything happening when I do this? Go to, saturation, anything happen there? Black, black point, shadows, brightness, and then just see if anything emerges. All right. Anyway, I've never just kind of tried to do that showing with the phone before. I don't know why I decided to do it now, but hopefully some of you get something out of it. Oh, and hang on. So, and Heidi says, what do you think of the video Rita shared the other day about Houston, where clouds perfectly outlined the city highways? You know what? I didn't see that, so I'm going to have to go look for that. I don't know if you have a link to it or anything, Heidi, to post in there. But Heidi's just referring to something that another kind viewer of the channel had posted a video somewhere else. I haven't seen it, but Houston, where clouds perfectly outline the city's highways. Well, I will have to go look that up. And if I find out anything intriguing about that for everyone else, I will put it in a post. I'll do like a screenshot and put it in my post section. Okay, now you got me intrigued, Heidi. That's a good thing. Okay, so anyway, that's just kind of showing you, again, you can take a photo. You'll be able to do this on your own. You'll look at that. You'll get to that after, taking it from original, and then you'll push it even further and you'll start to see shapes. And another key thing is looking at how the plasma is clinging around the object. You'll start to see that happening when you play with the different levels. And then also a key thing is to look at what I would call like the back end of some of these craft, is to look at the trajectories. And so a lot of these things, you'll see there's a movement to them. They may leave a trail, or you'll see like a mostly white sky, and you'll follow the back end of this thing, and there's like a darker blue trail because it's cut through all the white stuff and created a trail behind it. So it gets really interesting the more you get into looking at how to identify these things. Okay. All right. So that's enough about the craft portion of the show. And I think, let's see, I think I kind of covered all I wanted to talk about on this one. I will say, oh, okay. Actually, thank you. I think I got the link from Heidi, but without going into it, I don't want to post it in case there's something personal on there. So what I'll do is I'll look at that for everybody else out there watching the show. I'm going to look at that link from Heidi, and I will put something in my post section after this show. Thank you. Thanks for that, Heidi. Okay. Also, let's see. I was going to do a card reading, but since I kind of already covered the tower cards earlier, what I'm going to do, I think I will close on the show, and unless anybody has some good topics to bring up, and again, I will check that out. Let's see. I will check out this other link and post it and share with everybody. But I think unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, or feel free to put a link or anything up there in the chat, I am just going to draw from this little Virtue cards deck that I picked up a long time ago. It's just called Heart and Soul Virtue Cards. For anybody that just wants a little bit of a message, And I want to get out of kind of like the tower cards. This is what the back sides look like. There's two little, since it says heart and soul, they have two little decks. So I'm just going to try to shuffle. They're kind of funny to shuffle these and see if we can get a nice little message for everybody here today or whenever you might see this transmission. And again, I thank all of you for being here. And again, hopefully you're having a beautiful right now. Okay, so here we go. I got one from the little sunshine looking card deck, and then we'll go with the blue diamond, has kind of water energy. Let's see what, and I got that one from this one. We got two messages here. Okay, so I'm going to read this first. I'll hold it up. This is again the nice, like, beautiful energy, sunshine energy. If ever you become unhappy, sit in a quiet place and think about what you have learned today. Okay, and that comes with the energy of, lightness with a blue butterfly and cooperation. And we have the stars. So that's just a nice reminder to take a moment out. You feel unhappy? Connect in with nature. What does nature mean? Yeah, going off and sitting in a quiet place, but there's no stipulation if that's like day or night. You can sit out in the daytime, like the energy of my earlier slide, in a park, in a nice park, and just soak in the nice vibes of nature. Whether there's actually a canal down here, you can't see it. The elementals, be in the presence of the elementals, the water, the trees, the leaves, birds. In this particular park, in any given day, there would be ibis, or limpkin is even an interesting kind of water bird. I saw there once. Parrots, even wild. I think people had probably exotic parrots as pets, and now they're flourishing. Tons of those, blue and gold macaws and all of that in the park. But also it could mean going off in a quiet place and thinking about things at nighttime. If you're in a safe, from like crime safe area, and you can just go out and look up at the night sky, and just really connect in with that too. And that's also a great way to do your sky watching because, and actually one more popped out and it says happiness. So that is the key message for right now, key into that happiness. And especially with the weird energies of earlier in this week, I mentioned for anyone who's coming in later, there's just been some really weird energies moving through. A lot of people are noticing this, where just kind of some dark and negative thoughts are trying to infiltrate. And, the message there is just blast them out with, our inner sunshine, and it takes a conscious effort sometimes, just saying, no, kick it to the curb, or connect in with the divine and say, throw that phone a friend, I say, to your divine team, who can be God, Jesus, Mother Mary, can be ETs, your ET friends and family, your ancestors, your guardian angelics. There are so many. I often say, I don't really focus or have any image or visual of any one thing. I just know I've got beautiful, loving energy up there, and they're all like in a beautiful golden cloud above me. And I'm like, whoever, come in and help, assist, and, shine out, blast out that dark energy away. And I think we're being challenged with some of this more and more now, and not to be afraid of it. Just like I was reading ad nauseum, I know probably too much, but there's never too much. There was a reason why I spent a lot of time reading about the basic definition of the Tower card, really positive meanings in there. It's not like, oh my God, gloom and doom. It's like, look at the gifts and the way that we can like turn that frown upside down, where we can take a seeming bad situation, but we're powerful enough just to flip that SHID and make it positive, or go in and attack it. Like I said, we're not the victim here. And so that's that energy, is simply remembering to call in our divine team to help out when we might feel maybe a little vulnerable, or like we can't quite kick it to the curb ourselves. That's the power that we have. Just call it in, connect with it, and then, there's nothing going to stop us at that point, right? And Sarah says, yes, nature is magic. Yes equals happiness. I agree, with beautiful fern and dove and rainbow emojis. Beautiful. Yeah. So anyway, there's, nothing that we can't do. And yeah, we are going to hit those weak points. Like I said, coming on tonight, I was still going to. Oh, and look at, it's 9:22. I'm just laughing because anyone who saw the beginning of this, I spent a big long time on September 22nd being the birthdays of Bilbo and Frodo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings. So it's so funny that happened to catch my attention. But anyway, it's just a reminder that, I almost didn't come on. I mean, I definitely love my time, and anyone who pops on here, it's so much fun to see you and chat. And thanks again. Great to connect with you and do a transmission. But, on one level, I know divinely I'm supposed to come on and do this, rain or shine, as they say. Whether anyone's here or not, I'm just supposed to transmit. But it's all the better and richer and more beautiful when you guys are here. But I got to say, my point is that, yeah, I was feeling like, do I want to come on? I was feeling very low energy, something kind of, again, it's like a cloud passing over the sun. We know the sun's there, but something's trying to dim it out. I was just feeling like, But then I'm like, no, come on. I got to come on and we'll do this thing. So, and I'm glad all of you are here. And I'm very happy I did. Hopefully you are too. So unless there's anything else. Oh, you know what? I did also want to show some crystals of the show. And I'm not going to go over the meanings of all of them. I'm going to leave them to you if any of them pique your interest. But because the start off of the show was so intensive with my quote from Treebeard, the Ent, doing the magic and the alchemy. And I highly recommend, if you're going to read the books of the Lord of the Rings and the Two Towers, like I mentioned here, find this passage. I was going to read a little more, but I don't want to ruin it. There's so much magical, fun, magical stuff in those books. So much richer that you're not going to see in the movies whatsoever. But because of that green energy of that park and everything, I just wanted to bring up a lot of the green and ancestral stones to show you. So these are for you to look, hop on a little trail and investigate more further yourself. But this is Presley Bluestone. I've often shown this. Even though it looks greenish, it's called Presley Bluestone. And this is the stone in the inner ring. I'll say ring. It could be more like horseshoe shaped or whatever, of the standing stones at Stonehenge. All right. And this is just a palm stone of it. And I've told my story, I know, 1,000 times. Very powerful ancestral stone. Here's just another form of it. That's feldspar. The white parts are feldspar. A little pendant version. Here is a bead version, bracelet, version. So you can get it in many forms. And I'll just recap very briefly. The really short version of this is I got a palm stone of this a while ago. I put this one on my nightstand, not even really thinking about it. And I had one of the most intense, realistic dreams of my life, which I'll say wasn't really a dream. It was astral traveling, connecting with actual people. And this dream never happened to me before in my life, just through this palm stone. And I had gifted a palm stone like this to another neighbor at the time. And the neighbor told me too that the next morning, the father of the neighbor didn't even know this was in the house. And the father was sleeping on the second floor, and the friend I gave it to was the floor below. And the father, who doesn't know anything like this about crystals or any of this, came down and said, did you have, I had the most intense dream of my life. So the strength and power of this ancestral stone even went up through a story of a building. So, watch, I often say this, if you're going to have a crystal and collect some, I have a bunch, and I'll get to the others that I'm going to be talking about. If you have any in a little dish or something on your nightstand or near your head when you sleep, just be very mindful of what is there and how powerful it can be. So again, this is Presley Bluestone, a very intense, powerful ancestral stone, tying you to Stonehenge, Celtics, or whatever. Also watch out with very strong stones that are like the space rocks. So like Moldavite, Campo del Cielo, those are like meteor fragments. Those can be very intense, and those tie into galactic stuff. I don't resonate with those personally. They don't carry a good vibe for me whatsoever, but I know a lot of people swear by, they love Moldavite and whatever. But just remember, some of these are very strong. So when you're working with crystals, just make sure you know what you're, feel into it, and also try not to have it near your head, like on a nightstand. If you're not sure how powerful it is, maybe put it somewhere else in the room and then gradually move it, closer to you. Now, on the flip side, there are powerful protection stones that are absolutely great to have near your head on your bedside. For example, black tourmaline. Oh, hey, welcome to. Black tourmaline is a great one for absorbing negative energies. And I've heard of friends who've had very powerful stories of maybe having some kind of negative entity attacks or astral things followed them, in their sleep. And actually the stone broke on the nightstand, meaning the stone did its job in protecting and absorbing the energies. So these things are very real, very scientifically, provable of how they work. Also, I know stories where, people say get one of these bracelets for protection or beads, or they really love it. And then they've only had it a little bit, and then the whole bracelet breaks and they get really sad. Don't get sad. That means it did its job. It protected you. And yes, you can collect the beads and like do a spiritual cleaning. Can even be just holding them and shining your light on it. There's so many ways to clean, and I've talked about it in other crystal shows. But the point is that, yeah, some of these things can be very powerful, and again, working for us, but just be mindful of what you physically have near your head, okay? So other with the green energies, to continue with that theme of green with the park and the Ents. This is Pray Night, and this is kind of fun because it has like these little streaks, these lines that remind me of actual grass, and it's a really beautiful color green. And then this is just a green agate. And this is really pretty when light is, shown behind it. But again, it's nice to find a green stone, have in your collection. Here is serpentine. And this is a raw form. So when it gets wet, it gets even more, deep in color. Serpentine can go into green direction, even a little yellowish or brownish. And then we have, let's see. Oh, then we have emeralds, also green, although dark green. And again, I'm going to leave this, since I have so many, up to you guys to kind of look up the meanings, if any that kind of pique your interest. And then this one I got gifted. This is zoisite. It's just nice greens and blacks. Sometimes there's a stone called ruby and zoisite where it will be like this, plus a little bit of like raspberry colored pinks in there. And that is a nice, beautiful green stone that comes from, I think it only comes from this area. I might be mistaken, but it comes from Tanzania and Zanzibar. So that's pretty cool. And then that's the green energies of stones that I wanted to have represented here. And then we also have sky energy. So since I was talking about sky tumbling, I'll show you one stone. This is actually one of my healers used for crystal healing. And if you could feel the weight of it, it's a chunk. It's nice and heavy. But this is celestite, and it's powder blue. And that would be something that, if you wanted to put it, I know it's kind of hard to tell it's powder blue, but it is. If you wanted to put that like at your bedside, that would assist with being calm and good sleeping and things like that. Okay. And as I've mentioned in other shows, anything that I show that I do talk about the properties of these things, like this is ancestral, good ancestral connecting stone, the Presley Bluestone. I also, there's kind of the book knowledge that will say, oh, like I said, black tourmaline is great at absorbing negative energies. So is black lava. I have that here. Those are really good for that too. But also each crystal has its own personality, kind of like people. And, you could walk by and you're either going to feel a resonance with it or not. Like I've said often, maybe there's some exceptions out there, but I have a big aversion to hematite. I walk by it and I'm just like, I don't want that near me. Whereas other stones, I'm like, I love that piece of amethyst or whatever, right? And there's just certain stones that if they kind of rub you the wrong way, listen to that. Even if someone says, oh, but that's great for that. But if it doesn't innerly feel good for you and you're not at the same frequency, then no, it isn't, right? And each individual specimen has its own energy. Like I said, like individual people. So it could be like, oh, every day of the week, rose quartz is great for a heart healer, but you pick up one particular specimen and it doesn't feel right. Go with your instincts, right? Okay. And let me look at the chat. So, and I want to thank you guys for all your very beautiful comments. And thank you for the love hearts, Heidi. And Sarah says, thank you for coming on and sharing up Varleigh. Thanks. And yeah, I hope I didn't make that sound like any sympathy votes, but no, I really was just like, I'm not feeling it. But again, Sarah, your beautiful energy, all of you, just makes it all worthwhile. So thank you so much. I love your emojis. And thank you, Heidi, too. I'm happy you did. I'm at night shift and love listening to your thoughts on a quiet night here. Ooh, happy night shift, Heidi. Hope it's going well. Glad to hear it is. And hopefully it stays nice and serene for you. and I got to catch up on all the wonderful things. I know you've got some beautiful photos and things I got to get into and catch up on. And as I say, everybody, anybody who shows up in the chat, feel free, and not feel free, but do go check out if they have a YouTube channel and content, such as Heidi. Very beautiful, thought-provoking things, very interesting things. And again, hi to Chew. Thanks. So, okay, I think that's it. I don't know. If anybody needs any other card, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll wind it up for today. It is now 9:33, if those numbers mean anything. And also, I did spend a lot of time talking about 118, also the 922, the September 22nd of the Lord of the Rings birthdays. I say it probably on every show. I'm going to say it again for anyone who might not know it. There's a great Australian blog site called Joanne Sacred Scribes Angel Numbers. Just look that up, and you could have any number, any combination of numbers. You type it in, and she gives right away automatically, it'll spit out a beautiful meanings for that number. If, for example, even 666, right? Look how many people go get triggered. No need to get triggered on 666. I'm here to say that when you bring that down, that's a divine number. So you've got 6 plus 6 plus 6. So first of all, the 6 plus 6 is 12. That can be a 3, which is a divine. You got the Trinity. But you got the 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 6 is 18 plus, so 1 plus 8 is 9. And that's also a very divine number, also a number of completion. And Sarah says it's 11:33 here. That's a good one. Have a lovely rest of the evening, everyone. Yep, perfectly said. Thank you, Sarah. So anyway, go check that out for your numbers, any combination that you're seeing. And I guess we'll just, I'll sign off on that. So big love and hugs to all of you. Go get them. Have a beautiful weekend and week ahead. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye.